Hi everyone, welcome to another A Healthy New Zealand podcast, and today it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Nick Tumminello. Nick has been a mentor of mine for many years. He is a personal trainer, he's an author, and he's an educator. So welcome Nick, thanks for coming and joining us.
I really appreciate you having me, and thanks for everything you're doing to give back to everybody in your community and who's listening.
Nick, do you just briefly want to give us a little bit of a history and we can get into talking about all things exercise?
Sure. I'll keep it real brief. If people want to see my extensive background, I always joke, I say Google knows me, just type in my name, Nick Tumminello, and it's easy to find. So quick and dirty is I'm currently 41 at the time we're doing this. I've been a personal trainer in the US since I've been 18. I've written 3 books. Some of my books are still in the top 100 bestsellers in weight training in Amazon. Actually, my first book is Strength Training for Fat Loss. That's my second book. Thank you for highlighting that. I'm the editor-in-chief of the National Strength Conditioning Association's Personal Trainer Journal, so I have the science side covered. So I've worked with professional athletes from MMA all the way to American football and various sports, but mainly everyday people, just like you who are listening, and just like you and I. So I've got it all kind of covered. I've done the author, I've done the national speaking, I've done the peer reviewed, and of course I've done a lot of extensive training.
Thank you. And you've also been Personal Trainer of the Year a couple of times.
One's been lucky enough to win some awards. Yeah, appreciate you saying that.
I just want people to know the kind of quality that we've got on talking today. So, well, thanks for that background. So let's start just talking about, why do people need to exercise? Why do people need to train? Why is it so important?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they're going to know what I'm going to say. Everybody knows people who don't exercise know it's important to exercise, but normally they have kind of other reasons. And those reasons, I would say, they're not unjustified. The question is, how can we work it within their life? But, for the most part, if I'm going to try to give some reasons that people aren't obvious, right? The obvious ones are health, longevity, less stress, better sleep, look better in your clothes, look better out of your clothes, right? All the things that we all know. But I'll give you a couple examples reasons that you may not have thought about. One is it kind of teaches you that if you can overcome a little bit of discomfort, I'm not going with the no pain, no gain thing. You don't have to do extreme workouts and act like you're training, like you're working out for the Hunger Games. But if you give yourself some regular challenges that you meet and overcome, that does wonders for in your head, because most things that you deal with in life won't challenge you to that level that you already challenge yourself. So it gives you a lot of confidence and preparation, like, hey, I deal with this all the time on myself. Now, maybe this is a little different stress, but I put myself through this and I can take care of this. I'm used to pushing through a little discomfort. So there's a confidence aspect to it. And I would also say that you appreciate your downtime. And when I say downtime, I mean maybe just sitting on your butt on the couch in front of the television. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But you really earn it when hey, just a few hours ago, I was really working my tail off, right? We all feel great when we accomplish something, right? You build something, or you overcome some sort of challenge that you've been working with, or you finally got over some sort of long, journey that you're like, man, that's over. So we always feel better at the end of it. So it gives you a daily point of pride that you can ride on for the rest of the day. And when you're sitting on the couch, you can go, man, I earned this, right? So I just wanted to give a couple reasons that are not the same old things that you hear over and over again. And maybe those reasons are the reason that maybe sparks somebody to go, yeah, okay, that interests me.
I think that's great. People have always asked me why I work out, and I hate working out. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not true. I hate starting to work out. And I started working out when I was 18. I'm 61 now. And it's never ever got any better, but I just put the shoes on and I just go and do it. And the reason I do it is exactly for what you said. It's that one thing I've got control over in my life, and it's self-discipline, and it's good for my self-discipline. And then, of course, it's got all those other benefits as well. But I think that, you know, I've done it for so long because of that self-discipline.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's okay for people who do work out, but what about people who have never worked out in their lives? What would you say to them? How do we get people to actually consider it, make that initial step, get into doing some exercise?
Well, I would say, again, it's not about people like you and I going into that old fitness trainer mode that is, well, you just got to do it and, you know, start doing the Nikes, you know, just do it and all these kind of things, because they've heard that a million times and obviously they're still there. And also there's nothing, you know, wrong with that. The idea is the thinking, what can I do now? So I always start asking people questions, because it's not about me, it's about them. And the thing I would say is, I'd say, okay, we already established that everybody above the age of 7 years old knows that exercise is important, and they rate it, you know, do just 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes, depending on how you hear, just break a sweat every day. It doesn't have to be lifting weights. You know, everybody's heard this since they've been a child. So that's not new. Question is, you know, why aren't you doing something? So I would ask, you know, what is the main reason? And this is the point that you get a little bit honest, right? Where you don't say like, well, I don't have time, because we all know we have time to do the things we want to do. I always say you're only too busy for what you don't prioritize, right? So, and I'm not going to get into the, oh, you're making excuses kind of thing. The question is, why don't you prioritize it, right? Why is this something that you prioritize more over here? What is that doing for you, right? So maybe you prioritize more binging Netflix, right? And I'm not saying anything in a mocking manner, right? I believe people do things have good reasons for why they're doing things. Maybe it's, you know, eating a lot. Maybe it's going to happy hour at the bar, whatever it is. What job is that doing? I love asking that question. What job is that actually doing for you? Well, it helps me de-stress. Well, it helps me clear my mind, right? Because I'm really, you know, I'm fired up at work, and the TV helps me clear my mind. So now the question would be, and they may associate working out with something else that's going to take more mental energy from them, right? Because us trainers are talking about lifting percentages and resting and tempos and all these things. Are like, man, come on. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to do rocket science here. So it would really, asking those questions, and I'm saying you would ask your questions to yourself. When you ask, what job is this doing for me? Helping me de-stress, helping me shut my brain off from my work, those sort of things. Then the next question would be, is there a type of physical activity that might do that same job? Maybe it's yoga, right? Maybe you don't like classes. Maybe it is walking. Maybe it's, you know, whatever it is. Maybe it's riding a bike. Maybe you really don't like the act of working out, but you like a physical challenge, right? Like indoor rock climbing or something like that. So even though you are working out, it's just not the robotic curls here, triceps here, presses here. You understand what I'm saying? So, for example, it's really difficult to get us to go out and run, but maybe if you put a soccer ball, I know I'm a dumb American, you call it football over there, but maybe then you'll run all over the place, but you didn't realize it because it was a task oriented. Mm-hmm. So that's all I would say, is try to meet what you're currently doing. And we would say what we mean is what you're not doing, right? As you're not doing exercise. What I mean is, what are you doing in your free time? And understand, why do you do that? Why do you gravitate towards that? What is it doing for you, right? How is it making you happy? We all do things that make you happy. And then the question is there a form of exercise or physical activity, even if it's 10 minutes, that can serve that same job? And then let's start to bring those two things together. The reason why most people don't stick with certain exercise programs is because they don't make those connections. They basically just go, oh, I've been lazy, so I need to start exercising. And they go from not exercising at all to try to exercise 3-4 times a week, every morning or every day at 5 o'clock or whatever. And that's just square peg, round hole. You're always going to revert back to whatever your behavior is. So you try to do too much that just didn't fit with your lifestyle, right? So not to drain this on here, but here's a great example. As a trainer, and I'm sure you've had this as well, one of the most common things I've had come into, especially when I had my gym and I was training full time, before I was going around the world speaking and doing all the consulting and Zoom stuff, is people would come in and they go, oh, I'm really stoked to lose some weight and gain some more muscle. Money's not an issue, whatever. And I know that's not a lot of people have that situation, but even for these people, I want to train with you 4 times a week. And I go, okay, how many times are you exercising in the last 2 months? How many times a week have you been exercising? Well, sometimes I go weeks without exercising, or maybe once or twice a week. I go, okay, if you've been going once a week, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. We're going to start you with twice a week, because that's already one more thing than you're doing. Once that becomes normal, first off, we're going to see if we can make that normal. Then we'll talk about going to 3 times a week, right? So you understand, because that's seeing so many people are so gung-ho, but that only lasts so long before life kicks back in, and the regular stresses of work and the fact that you don't like cooking, or you don't like eating in the morning, all those things, that's not going to change. So the thing is, fit with who you are and embrace who you are and what your schedule is now, versus trying to say, okay, this is the new person I have to be. I've got to be this person who gets up every morning at this time or goes to the gym every day after work. If you're an adult in your 30s, 40s, 50s, your habits are fairly set. You got to make really, really small changes and put it on drip to make sure that is no longer a change to you anymore. It's just normal. Like you said, how you are, it's normal for you to exercise. So I would say that's the reason why a lot of people aren't exercising, that know they should.
That's great advice. And I think there's a few things in there to unpack. I mean, we will have both seen it. One of the things we get over here is, we have a lot of marathons and half marathons. And so people use that as motivation. Oh, I'm going to go and run a marathon, and then they summon the discipline to train, often get injured. And then as soon as the marathon's over, they've gone back to their previous habits. So it hasn't facilitated any long-term behavior change. But one of the things I sort of wanted to unpack with you a little bit is about, which you briefly touched on really, is about how people feel about their own bodies. I was reading some research the other day, that came out of the UK, looking at how people feel about themselves, and 73% of people were disgusted by their bodies, felt ashamed, a number of them were had suicidal thoughts about their bodies. Do you have any sort of thoughts about that?
I'll give my thoughts on that as best I can, but you brought up a really good point that I think is really important. You were talking about how sometimes people will use something like a marathon and they're really gung-ho and they'll ride the wagon until the marathon comes. They'll do the marathon, then they're off the wagon, right? And then who knows until the next thing comes in. Well, that's actually kind of there's personality types that have been identified. I wrote an article on this. I was just looking it up, August 19th, 2019. On my, I don't know if you can really see this or not. I'll tell you what the title is, and you could link to it or whatever when this comes out.
We'll link to it.
But what it's called on my site is the 3 fitness personality types, identification, communication, and practical tips for personality-specific personal training. Now, let's cut to the chase. People want to know, what does this mean? What's the actionable tips? Okay. This is all based on psychology research. So I have my references. If you're into the scientific nerdy stuff, the references are there. But there was a paper, and they call it your causality score. And what they mean is what motivates you to do things. And I don't mean motivate like the cheerleader kind of, hey, you're out, you know what I mean, gung-ho motivate. I mean really like what motivates you to get up every day and go to work, right? Well, you want to be able to pay your bills, right? You want to be able to feed your family. That's what I mean by motivation in this context. What really gets you to do what you want to do? And these researchers, and by the way, this is not new research. I think it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. There's been several research that's replicated. Anyway, they identified 3 personality types, and they are as follows. Keep in mind, this is not my work, somebody else's work. Personality in no particular order. Number 1 is the autonomy-oriented person. Number 2 is the control-oriented person. Number 3 is the impersonal-oriented person. Now, let me give you the quick overview of what each of these mean. So the autonomous-oriented person, and I'm going to use walking into a gym as the example. That's the person who basically says, I don't want you to give me the tour and introduce me to the salesperson and show me where the spa is in the bathroom. Just let me go work out. Let me go figure it out. Let me see how I like this place. And if I like it on my free week pass or day pass, I'll sign up, right? You want to dictate it on your own, which, by the way, that's my personality, right? I like to be, I like to have things in flux. I don't like to have a hard workout written. I like to have a direction that I'm going to go to because I want to be able to play it by ear. And I'm very internally motivated, right? I don't need the free t-shirt. I don't need the prize, right? So in work, this might be the person who doesn't necessarily need all the recognition, or doesn't necessarily think we all like nice things, but they're not really driven by the material things, right? They want to feel very satisfied inside, to feel like they're doing things that they like. So that's the autonomy-driven person. Now we have the control-oriented person. What you just demonstrated with the marathon person is the person that if they have a specific outcome to go for, could be a marathon, could be a weight loss competition, right? They will stick with it. They need that direction. Otherwise, they're rudderless, right? And they won't stick with that. Now, this is the person, I don't want to say somebody's opposite of the autonomous person, but this is the person who will do a lot better if they're your employee or you are this person. You tend to do better when there's like when hey, I want to have a certain car, you have a certain goal in mind that's going to drive you to work. And that's not being materialistic. That's just something that you want, right? Or, you just want to get the free t-shirt to say that I completed the same thing, right? So those things, they apply outside of working out. Now, so that's the person who will probably more likely get started in fitness if they have like a weight loss challenge to get into because they need that direction. Now you have the impersonal oriented person. That's the person who basically, if they walk into a new gym or fitness facility and the trainer's all high energy and, hey, how's it going? It's great. Check out my weight. Check out. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't even know what the vibe is like here. I feel like I've tried everything before and nothing has worked. I feel like nobody's listened to me. I need to see that I'm comfortable here, right? So kind of what we might say is, the self-responsibility and tough love, and you just got to do it. That type of talk will be great for the autonomous person. It will drive the impersonal person as far away from you as possible. This is the type of personality that really likes to do things like be on group forums and have that group support, right? So this is why actually a lot of people have liked things like CrossFit or whatnot, even though CrossFit's kind of hardcore. And I know CrossFit's kind of lost its, luster as it used to have 10 years ago, but it's still a very big name in the fitness field because it's great when you can go in there and there's 10 people around you while you're doing the rows and they're cheering you on. Come on, do it. That group support is doing it for you. So you feel good about that. Now, the reason why this is important is us as trainers and everyday exercisers who are listening to this, understand what is all of us are all three of these, but they're kind of fall in a hierarchy, right? So what is at the top of your hierarchy? Which one that resonates with you? And when you're listening to me say this, you go, oh, that one is mainly me when it comes to exercise. Then find a type of exercise that fits that personality type, and you're far more likely to stick with it. Or in the impersonal oriented case, find more of a place that has a good community, right? And you're more likely to stick with it. Maybe it's diet forums, right? And when I say diet, I don't mean going on some restricted diet, something that has to do with nutrition, something that's strong community support. So you have to understand that, and you can link, or I'll send you an email to this and they can read the entire article if they want the references. But a lot of times we try to do things that don't fit what drives us, and we don't stick with it because of that.
Oh, that's great. We will definitely link to that article. I might even put a link on the website so people can read that. And I think that comes back to quite a few points just about improving our health in general, really, because I was thinking not so long ago that we're always trying to approach people and encourage them to do things as individuals. And like you said, you know, it's all about self-responsibility and so forth. And it's really hard to do something as an individual when you really want to do it in a social context. And, you know, if you're going to change your diet and you've got to go home and nobody in the family wants to change their diet, or no one in the family wants to go for a walk with you, it's
Right.
so much easier to just lapse back into what's comfortable and not rocking the boat. And I think Jim Rohn said, you know, we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So
Sure. Yeah. So, and this applies to finding, if you're an individual who's looking to go someplace for exercise direction, whether you have the financial ability to hire a one-on-one trainer, or you want to go somewhere and do group training classes, which are obviously usually more affordable. You know, you have to understand, like attracts like. So I'm a super autonomous oriented person. So I tend to attract other people who are like that. You know, you've worked with me. You're very much similar personality, right? You know, you don't want to be babysat. You don't need me to send you text messages every Tuesday and give me your journal. You're like, man, you know, I got it. Really, you know, you're bugging me. Other people, they may love that, right? That may be exactly what they want. That might be more the impersonal person, and using the terminologies from those research studies. So it's also important to us to know who we're going to be best to work with and who we're not actually going to be best to work with, and maybe where to send somebody based on some of the things that they say that they've liked and enjoyed, and things that they've also made them uncomfortable about exercise. Like me, I don't like group training at all personally. All those people around and the energy, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, I just want to do things on my own. I don't want to be told what to do, right? At least for fitness. But I go to a Muay Thai kickboxing class and I want the coach to tell me what drills to do, but then I also want to be able to freestyle a little bit. So again, like I said, we're all a mold of all three. The important thing is understand which context are you when it comes to exercise. And then maybe if you're one of those people who is that needs that external motivation, like the marathon, question is kind of have an idea of what's the next thing to try to keep you moving. You know, that's the only issue with that. You don't want to be on the roller coaster, very fit and then sedentary, very fit, sedentary. So everything comes with its own challenges as well.
Okay. And then I know it was a bit of a curveball asking you about how people feel about their bodies, but I would appreciate any insights you might have into that feeling that people just really don't like themselves. And I think, again, probably all of us have aspects of that at times, but it's the only body we've got. And even if it doesn't maybe meet the expectations we would like it to meet, you know, how do we turn our emotions around about our body and start to show it some value?
Well, I mean, there's certainly aspects of this that I'm not qualified to talk about. You know, that's a lot of psychological. There's professionals that do that, and I would never want to try to, you know, step out of my zone there. I will say this though. Again, it goes back to your personality type. So some people are motivated by being pissed off. You know, they just go, okay, that's it. You know, I've been looking in the mirror for a year now saying I don't like it, and now it's gotten worse. I haven't. Then finally they just have I've had enough of myself. I'm going to do this now. Right. So there's a joke and I think there's actually a book called this. I don't know how good the book is or, you know, realistic the information is, but it's called the Breakup Diet. Right. And we used to joke about that. I used to joke with my clients. I'm like, oh, you're on the Breakup Diet. But a lot of times, this is kind of a good example. What I mean by getting, you know, kind of pissed off is how many times have we seen somebody get a divorce and they were probably not in the healthiest relationship to begin with, and they literally turn their life around. They go from being fairly sedentary and then they become like super fit, right? We see this a lot. And you just think, man, like And there's some of that where it's, I just want to be a different person. I don't like who I was in that relationship. Or it's also maybe a little bit of it's like, that person didn't think I was good enough, or they left me for somebody who they thought that it was, younger and pretty. I'm going to show them. I want to be the hottest person, that they've ever seen. So I want to be the hottest version of myself. Some people are motivated by that, right? I can speak to those people, right? Because then there's stages that they call it, like the contemplative, pre-contemplative stage, because I can think like that. I'm motivated when somebody doesn't think I can do something, right? You know what I mean? Or I'm motivated where I can just think it's like, all right, man, you've been telling yourself you're going to do this, you're going to do it, because that's how I operate. There's another side of that is I can't speak to, right? That people aren't motivated by that sort of motivation would only just make things worse, right? And that's where I have to know where I can't speak. So I would just have to say that for oneself, or just say again, understand maybe what motivates you. And sometimes people got to hit that kind of bottom, right?
Yeah.
Before they just go, all right, that is it. Things are going to change right now. I'm done. And sometimes they wait a little bit before they really officially do change, right? There's other sides to that about, not loving yourself, or, self-love, or not, that are more for a psychologist to speak on.
Okay, great. So maybe we could talk a little bit now about exercise, seeing as you're that's your forte, and you're a great trainer and educator. So if somebody who hasn't exercised before was to come in and see you, do you want to walk us through that process a little bit and how you would approach it? And
Sure. Yeah. Well, now we're speaking a lot of what we've been talking about from up until now is be what I call from the neck up, right? It's more of the psychology of things. Now we're going to talk about from the neck down. What do we do about the physiology of things? So when somebody comes to me and they basically say, hey, I do want you to help me with my exercise, and we talk about some of the things we've already discussed, personality types, yada, yada. When it gets down to the gym floor, what I want to see, I want to evaluate how this from the neck down is moving. What are you bringing with me? I'm not there to judge it and say bad or good, right? I just want to see what we're working with. What's our starting point? And it really comes down to this. Even though exercise is individual, just like food tastes are individual, and your medical history determines that, and all these other things, and access to equipment that you have, all those things are going to be individual. Everybody is a human. And just like every car, whether it's a minivan or Mini Cooper, drives forward, drives backwards, turns left, turns right, starts and stops. Right now we have different sizes and shapes, so they all don't turn the same way. They all don't start and stop the same way as quickly. Humans are the same. We all bend our knees, we hinge our hips, we push things away from us, we pull things towards us vertically and diagonally and horizontally. We rotate and we locomote, which is our trainer fancy terms for getting from point A to point B. Crawling, walking, climbing, swimming if you're in water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at some of those basic movement patterns and see, we would call those, squats or lunges. Now, depending on your strength, we might have you just do a squat to a bench if you feel like you're going to fall, right? So obviously those variations are beyond the scope of this, but we're going to find some variation to see where you start. We're going to do the same thing with pushing and pulling. We're going to see what movements hurt, what movements we can modify right there, that to see if we can get you out of pain, to see if we can do things that work around any sort of real limitations. And that is where we're going to mold fitness principles that are general or universal, which means fitness principles are you want to work your whole body, you want to do pushing things and pulling things, you want to do things that make your knees bend and your hips hinge, because if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So you want to use your body as much as possible. And then I'm going to actually eliminate exercises, variations that I think may hurt you, may not be good for you, that you can't do right now. And that's where we're going to start it. And then from there, the first goal is just to work on your quality of movement, which is mainly, what does that really mean? It means body awareness. in everyday person terms, right? Because sometimes we think like, oh, is this what you want me to do? And we think, well, we're getting close, right? But, be a little bit more, straighten your back out a little bit more. There's a lot of that going on, right? Anytime you learn a new skill, your brain thinks you're doing it every time, but then you're not doing it every time, right? And after a while, it becomes second nature. So you have to go through that process where you're not working with heavy loads. You're basically focusing on keeping the weight lighter. You're minimizing fatigue, so you're not taking things to failure or to muscle burn. And you're working on just making sure you're controlling the movement up and down, learning the quality first, right? Just like the first thing you learn how to drive a car, you're going to make sure you know how to where the brakes are. You're going to make sure you know how to ease the pedal before you're, just jam that thing and you go on the beltway. So it's another reason why a lot of people have problems exercising is they do too much too fast. They get really sore because they go from not training at all, not exercising at all, to training like they're getting ready to join the special forces in the military. And they get themselves really sore, they get hurt, and then they go, oh, this stuff is not for me, right? And that's the thing. You don't have to do extreme workouts. You don't have to do extreme diets. You don't have to work out like a gym rat. So those are all the things that we do for the first time.
That's great. And then that raises another point for me, is about being a beginner again. I think sometimes people don't want to be a beginner again. They've got some high skill in one area of life, or even perhaps in one area of exercise, that maybe they've run a few marathons, and then they come into the gym and then they find someone said, oh, you're not moving as well as you should do, or, we're going to sort of lower the level of exercise till we get you hip hinging properly, or get your overhead press looking better. And that's a bit demotivating sometimes, but it's important, isn't it, that they do work on that quality of movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to be careful if, we're to get too much into trainer talk here. I mean, I think that, again, the main thing is just to get exercising, yourself, and find something that you enjoy. And then, if you want some refinement, then that's where you bring in somebody like us. But the human body is not as fragile as a lot of us make it out to be. I'm not saying that just means you can go beat it up and do all kinds of things, but for the most part, the things that people doing in the gym, if they're working out recreationally a few times a week, I'm okay with that. So I mean, now I would say it changes when you just are constantly hurting yourself, and then you just keep doing the same thing. Right now, at that point, I would just say, hey, try something else. I mean, because maybe you don't want to work with a trainer, or that you can't afford it, whatever. I get all that. So some of that is the kind of stubborn thing. But you know what? We all also have that kind of journey too, right? Where sometimes the hard lessons are the only lessons that stick with us. So sometimes we got to make that mistake, and then go, oh, okay, now I see why you were telling me not to, train that way, or to work through pain. I finally hurt myself, and it's been 6 weeks since I could do anything with this arm. Maybe that was finally the lesson that you needed. Hey, maybe, sometimes we all got to have our own journey that way.
So what about strength training, Nick, or, resistance training? How important do you think that is in the overall picture for people? I mean, I place a high value on strength training because, muscle is our organ of longevity. All the recent, research coming out is showing how important it is.
Yeah. Well, I would say that if I had to, if you asked me, if you said, Nick, if you could pick one form of exercise, what would it be if we didn't do anything? And I would always just say, strength training. Now, keep in mind that, going indoor rock climbing, of course, for them, I'm speaking to the recreational person. There are people who are athletic, they're already going outdoor climbing. That's a huge version of strength training, right? But, normally if you're doing that kind of stuff, you're getting that form in there, that form of exercise. But between aerobics and those other things, Pilates, yoga, I would highly recommend folks strength train. That being said, I will not sit here and ever tell people who just say, I just don't like strength training. I've tried it. It bores me. You know, I'd rather do Pilates and yoga and a spin class. Fine. And the one thing that I always tell trainers is keep in mind, as long as you're dealing with gravity, everything is resistance training. Right? Now, it depends on how heavy it is, right? You're dealing about 3 times body weight every time you take a step if we get into walking and running and those things. But even yoga, you're holding your body up, you know, in different positions. So it's just different levels of resistance training. Notice I used the resistance as a broader word.
Yeah.
So, you know, the most important thing is you find a physical activity that you enjoy because you're going to keep doing it. That's the main thing. Once you find that you start to have an appreciation for regular physical activity, normally that becomes a gateway. And then you say, well, you know what? Now maybe I'm a little more comfortable doing this. Let me try strength training 1 or 2 times, you know, twice a week because, you know, I'm looking for something kind of new, right? Where at first, if you do it because you have to do it, normally we won't stick with that kind of stuff. So like I said, we always have to, a lot of times where us trainers fail is we focus too much on the neck down. And we forget that we forget the personal in personal training. And we get too focused on the training and the barbells and the dumbbells and the biomechanics and all the other fancy science stuff that we care about. But the people that aren't exercising or, you know, have issues with their body, whatever, everything that we have to say about motivation and you should exercise and healthy and, you know, be healthy, those people have heard it 1,000 times. They're not done, you know. So we also have to understand that there's something that we've been missing there. And like I said, hopefully we've kind of covered some of those things that are more from the neck up, because we all have reasons for doing what we're doing or reasons why we don't do what we don't do.
Mm.
You know, we run towards things that make us happy. We run away from things that don't. So the question is, how do you find something that's going to make you happy? That's physical activity related.
So let's just talk about a few of the myths that we come across in the fitness industry. So one of the myths is that resistance training is going to make us big and bulky. And that's a big concern for women. And, you know, there are certain women who do start lifting some weights and do, you know, find their thighs. Well, I think sometimes they feel firmer and that makes them feel bigger and bulkier as well.
Sure.
But there are definitely, you know, different body types respond differently to exercise. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, certainly if you gain muscle, muscle is the shape of your body. It's the simplest way I can describe it. And when we lose fat, it just reveals that shape. That's the easiest way I can really describe what the two things are. Now, I get where that comes from, and I get why it's something that drives trainers nuts when we hear that, you know, it's going to make me bulky. But I also get why it's something that a lot of everyday people say, look, trainers can make fun of it and tell us we're wrong all the time, but I still am going to say it. And I'm still going to be worried about it. And here's why. There's certain areas of a lot of times our body that we just feel like is naturally larger than we want it, right? And if you're going to gain muscle, then we think, well, that's not going to be helpful, right? So that's not unreasonable to say, right? So I know a lot of females, for example, who just say, look, my quads, my thighs, they're as big as I want them to be. I don't want them to be any bigger. So it's not unreasonable to say I'm not going to do a lot of exercises that work on my quadriceps. So because doing exercises is sure not going to make the quadriceps shrink. Now, unless you have a lot of extra body fat there. However, if you want a nice perky, toned, as they say, glutes, you don't get any perky or anything without building more muscle, right? Making it harder. So the terms may be different. Guys may say ripped, build muscle. Some other females may say, you know, tone, tighter, you know, perkier. All those are, you know, different terms to mean the same thing. Physiologically, like physiologically or biology, I'd say this water is water, right? People can call it 10 different things, fluid, whatever they can call it, hydration. It's still water. It still has a certain makeup. It's H2O. Muscles either atrophy, hypertrophy, that just is the opposite of atrophy. Atrophy is shrink. Hypertrophy is they grow, or they stay the same, right? So staying the same is not going to get you a perk of your butt, and atrophy is certainly not going to get you a perk of your butt. You only have one option left. That's build muscle. So whatever you call it, I don't care what you call it. Whatever's going to get you to take your medicine, make the medicine taste good, fine. We'll get you to do that. So that's the best way I can describe the importance of strength training. And back to the previous point, if you want a perkier butt and nicer shoulders, meaning more rounded shoulders in your dresses and your shirts and whatever, but the exercises that you're doing, your choice of physical activity, don't create a lot of stress on the shoulders or on your glutes, well, now we do have to implement some other form of exercise that will work those. Otherwise, you'll just remain frustrated. So that sometimes is the blend of doing some of the things that you might not have been like, well, that's not as fun for me. I'm not as fun doing this with the shoulders, with the dumbbells. I'd much rather, be out on my bicycle. I can rack up the kilometers on my bike, on my road bike, no problem. But, I don't really like doing the weights. Yeah, but if you want to get nicer shoulders and a little bit more of the butt, you're going to have to supplement some of those things in. The nice thing is, you can only do a few exercises every other day, a couple times a week, and you get some decent results. So like I said, sometimes you got to put it on drip. Start with the cycling if you're not doing anything because you like that, right? Maybe it's easier on your knees and it gets you out in the wind, right? Great. Now that becomes normal. So now twice a week, 3 times a week, you don't even think about it. It's just like after you have your coffee and whatever you have, you like to get out on the road. Now you don't even think about that anymore. Now what's the next thing? That's how we do it, and do it long term
and progress it. So
right.
These people who come into the gym, and I would say it's probably about 95% of the people that come into a general kind of gym, all say, oh, I just want to do cardio to lose some body fat, because I don't want to. Well, they talk about being toned, which you've just covered. It's
Right.
really the same as building muscle. But they just want to sit on the bike or run on the treadmill and lose some body fat.
Okay, good. If you try that. I'll give you 3 months. You do your thing, and then we'll measure you, and then we'll see what changes that you made. Right? I mean, that's if you don't listen. If somebody says, well, that might not be the best approach. Again, we have 2 things there. One is maybe that's what like I said, we run towards what makes us happy. We run away from things that don't. So if somebody just says, look, this is what I'm most comfortable with doing right now. This is what feels best to me. I'd rather them do that than if they're sedentary. So I'm not going to fight you on that at all. But if you come to me and you say, these are my goals, and this is how I'm going to accomplish it. And I say, well, maybe there's some better ways to accomplish it, or you're not going to change your diet. You're just going to do cardio for losing fat. And I say, well, you got to be in a caloric deficit, and, you're not really burning a lot of calories doing an exercise. I'm happy that you're exercising. That's great. Well, no, I've read my articles and I've heard. Great. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's get some metrics, because numbers don't lie, right? People lie, numbers don't. Here's what your body fat is. How long? We're going to give you 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I think this can be done if you couple this with the diet or whatever. Okay, let's see. Right? And I'm not going to train you. You don't need me to watch you while you're on the bicycle, right? So I'll be here. You know where to find me. Come back to me 10 weeks. And if you lost some body fat, I'm going to be happy for you. So either way, you win, right? If you didn't, then you'll know that maybe we need to make some tweaks along the way, right? Because the tweak sure as heck can't just be, well, more cardio, because you have to have more time in the day for that, right? I mean, you can't extend your days. You have to get the best out, more out of the time that you are exercising. That's really the question. How to get the most positive work out of the same amount of time.
Biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, but again, like I said, sometimes we have to understand we're dealing with adults. we're dealing with some very successful people who are very intelligent people who have been, you know, had a lot of success in their life, own multiple businesses. And, you know, sometimes we all have to learn some lessons on our own. Again, that's who has to be responsive. Some people just go, hey, look, you know, you're Batman, I'm Robin, I'll follow you. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. Other people go, no, I'm Batman. You're Robin. And you go, okay, fine. But if, you know, your plan doesn't work, we're switching roles, all right? We're switching uniforms. Deal? And they go, okay, deal.
Nice. I like it. So just to finish up, can we talk a little bit about diet? What role does diet play in all of this?
Well, it's huge, obviously. I mean, a lot of people can get away with certain things that other people can't. We all have that friend that can eat, you know, seem like they're a bottomless pit, right? And some of us think that we just look at a piece of pizza and we gain belly fat, right? We all have all these things, and there's truth to that. But I would say that it goes back to, again, I don't want to repeat the things that the question you're asking me is, you know, how important is nutrition? We all know it's important, right? We all know we should eat more vegetables, lean meats, or meat substitutes if you're a vegan, vegetarian. Sleep is hugely important. We have research that shows that if you don't get enough sleep, about 8 to 10 hours a night for adults, some adults that are working adults, or especially with kids, are literally laughing at me right now, right? That they can't get near 5 hours sleep. But the research is the research that actually does cause fat gain or hinder fat loss. So there clearly is some hormonal stuff going on there, and there also have the calories in, you know, calories out thing. So that being said, the question is, knowing those things, knowing sleep is important, knowing you eat your vegetables and all this stuff. The question is, why aren't you doing it? It goes back to the process of actually making the change is not just, well, you need to do it. Because if that was the case,
You'd be doing it.
You already be doing it. And here's the best example. I'm going to put it back on us trainers. I'm in good shape. But if you ask me, am I in the best shape I've ever been in my life? I'm going to say no, right? Are you in the best shape of your life? Are you in the best possible shape you could be in? No. It's not for a lack of knowledge.
No.
It's right now, that is not the priority for you. Exercise is a priority for you. Eating well is a priority for you. But to take it to the next level, to where it consumes you more, right? Where you doing more meal prepping and more cooking and a little longer exercise here, and maybe not skipping a little workout because you had to do an interview with Nick Tumminello overseas, right? It's not for a lack of, the behavior, you see? So all the rest of our clients are the same. Everybody is the same way. It's usually not a lack of knowledge. Knowledge normally comes into play when you're already doing something. And then the question is, hey, how do I get more bang for my buck? So sometimes us trainers, we look at the density of things before we even look at, like, hey, are you even going to do this? Right? You know what I mean? Let's not focus on exactly what you're doing. Can you stay active? Are you enjoying it? Now, you got that? Good. Now let's go from there. Same thing with nutrition. Hey, what are you doing on a regular basis? Well, I drink soda as my primary drink. Okay, fine. Instead of saying no soda, right? Can you give me water for one of those meals? One, right? Let's see where you go from there. Because if that's not happening, then sure as heck, you're not going to never drink it, you know, at any meal. And you're going to hate life, and you're going to go right back to it 2 weeks later, 2 months later, maybe if you're a real glutton for punishment. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go, this diet stuff and health stuff is not for me. Screw it all. And that's where a lot of people end up. The strategy was not as good there.
I always approach diets with, I call them bridging behaviors, and let's just replace something with something that's not quite as bad, you know, so make the less worse choice, really. And if you're used to drinking soda with your meal, well, maybe switch it out for some sparkling water, or, you know, even low calorie soda. I mean, just anything that just makes, it's not perfect, but we can just make it not quite such a bad choice. If you're going to have chocolate biscuits for afternoon tea, maybe switch it out for some cheese and crackers or something like that, you know?
Yeah. The first thing to do is abandon perfect. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So excellent insights as always, Nick. You have such a beautiful way of framing things and helping to see a bigger picture, which is one of the things I love about your work. So we've been talking to the general population here. So for anyone listening to this, we're not talking about people who are in the gym and trying to provide extra advice for how to do your gym work better. And if you do want to find out about that, you can look up Nick at Performance U, and he's got a whole heap of books, and I'll get you to talk about your NT bands shortly. But just for older people, my last question, just for older people listening to this who have never really exercised before, any advice?
I would say, again, it goes back to find a form of physical activity that you would enjoy. Maybe it's taking up recreational tennis, maybe it's just going for walks, something that you think, that will serve a purpose for you other than just having to work out. Now, if that's the case and there's nothing else, then, you may have to give yourself a little kick in the pants, right? And just understand that the hardest part is always the first 2 weeks, right? And then after that, it just becomes kind of normal in who you are. And like I say, when I say it makes you happy, I'm not saying it doesn't challenge you, but at least something that you just don't think is just horrific, right? You're just like, man, this is boring. I'll never do this. So I really have nothing else to add that I haven't really covered. That's all I'd say. Find something that you think that is the least, I would say, is the least sucky thing to you that's physically active. Start there.
Great. And that brings us into band training pretty well, because band training is a great addition to people who don't really want to be lifting heavy weights, and it's a nice transition between doing your cardio and getting into heavier lifting. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your bands and where people can find you? And
yeah, I appreciate that. Well, some of our best customers and a lot of our band sales come from people over the age of 50 and 60. So basically, a resistance band is a resistance band. It's great it's portable. You use it at home. Ours has a built-in door anchor. The difference with our band, nothing is magic, is that it's a thicker fabric that has latex woven into it. So it's the most comfortable. It's designed to be the most comfortable and stable band around your body. The issue with the typical rubber bands, it's fine when you have handles on them. But if you have those big loop bands that are rubber and you put them around your body, around your thigh, around your waist, around your arm, around your elbow, they are not designed for that. All us trainers have been doing lots of exercises like that. They're incredibly uncomfortable. They pull the hair on your arms. They pull the skin. They roll. They flip. They're very uncomfortable to do. So I designed a band that serves the exercise purpose there, but is much more comfortable and stable. It's a thick fabric, very heavy duty fabric, to make it more comfortable when you're doing exercises. So that's what the band does best. And we've got thousands of sales, a proven track record to show for it.
And have you got some videos or DVDs or training information that goes out with those bands for people who are interested in them?
Yeah, we have on our website. So the website is, I have the logo on here, but it's ntloop.com, NT, my initials. So Nancy, Tom, ntloop.com. And on that site, you not only can, learn more about the bands and purchase if you are interested, but we have a huge video library, all step-by-step instructions. Everything is done for you.
Excellent. That's good. And can people follow you on Facebook as well? You've got a Facebook?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. Just use my name. Just have to get the spelling of my last name properly. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. That's great. And you're fairly active on Facebook, so
Try to be.
try to be. And what's your new book that's coming out? You said you're...
Well, yeah, we have, it's going to be at least another year before it's out, but it's going to be another book on strength training. I don't want to give away the title because the titles sometimes are a fluid process. So if I tell you a title now, 6 months from now, that title may change. So, but it's going to be a little bit more advanced towards a little bit more of advanced strength training population.
Okay.
So that's about the best I can give you on that.
And just for the people who aren't beginners, you train for, well, you call it hybrid training, so people can train for body composition and performance. You just want to, just maybe touch on that briefly for those who aren't, who are more athletic and, what they could expect to get from your work.
Well, the book that you showed there, Building Muscle and Performance, which I appreciate you highlighting, there it is again. Thank you very much. That would be the book that I would recommend to that population. And I would simply say this. Most of us, we have kind of a mixed goal, right? We don't just want to get bigger. We want to get a little bit more explosive. Or enough, to put it another way, we don't want to lose one quality while working on the other, right? You don't want to lose flexibility while you're gaining muscle. Or you don't want to become slower while you're getting stronger. So that book, hence the title, Building Muscle and Performance, shows you how to seamlessly put the different techniques together from sports performance training, from strength training, and from bodybuilding to give you that total package. Now, that being said, again, I pride myself on being as honest as possible. You achieve what you emphasize. So if I emphasized only gaining muscle, then I have to spend all my time gaining muscle. But because I spent all my time gaining muscle, what am I going to, I'm going to lose in all the things that I didn't emphasize. So the book there basically says, if you utilize all of these things, but you don't go too much to the extreme in any of them, you're not going to be the bodybuilder body, but you'll gain more muscle than if somebody doesn't. But because you're using some sports performance training, you're also going to gain some speed and not lose some speed. But are you going to be as fast as the person who focuses on track drills all day long? Of course not. You see? So it covers what most of us humans who are athletic really want. We don't want to be the bodybuilder. We're not making a career in athletics because we're long out of college and we never got a chance to be a professional athlete, but we like to stay athletic. That shows you how to bring those two things together because they're not mutually exclusive goals.
Excellent. That's a great book, so I highly recommend it for people. And I've also got your other book. I've forgotten what it's called. I lent it to a friend, so I can't show people a copy of it. It was about...
Talking about Your Workout Perfected?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so who's the target market for that book?
Well, all my books are consumer-based books, but I would say if there are any trainers listening, out of all my consumer books, that would be the one I would recommend to trainers from a program design, to learn program design standpoint. Building Muscle and Performance covers everything. So there's a chapter on fat loss and fat loss oriented workouts. Obviously, you have to have your diet in order if you really want to lose fat, but they're more metabolically demanding workouts. We have a chapter full of workouts that are more geared towards muscle building, a chapter of workouts that are more geared towards general fitness, and one that's geared towards more sports performance. I would say for the general fitness enthusiast, which is interestingly, you notice that it's the most common group of people that are out there exercising, right? Like most of us are not really exercising with a very particular goal other than just staying in shape, right? Offset some of what age does to us, right? Weight management, just staying fit and healthy, feeling better. We're not trying to chase bench press numbers, or we're not trying to enter a powerlifting competition or anything like that. But notice there's not really many books that are geared towards that. Normally they're very performance or very bodybuilding oriented. So I pride myself on being one of the only books that truly addresses workouts and the psychology behind working out and how you structure a workout differently for different goals.
Excellent. And then for any of the trainers who may be listening to this, and there may be one or two, it's a great resource for them, and they can go to your website as well.
Yeah, just Google me. Google knows me.
And I guess with the COVID thing, you're not going to be doing much traveling at the moment and very many workshops and things like that. So you sort of going online, or any plans like that for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, a lot of, we're definitely moving a lot of our courses online. We have, if you're a trainer, we have a practical program, Design Mastery, which is my entire training system that's all online. It's geared towards trainers. So if people ask, how is it different than the books are consumer driven. This is 100% for trainers. So that's my flagship resource. And then we have more things like that to come. When we say we, I have people who help me out. I have a website designer. I have a business administration person. I can't do it all myself. Nobody is an island, as they say. So, but all the training information comes from yours truly.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
I appreciate you having me, and enjoy the rest of your day there. Mine's coming to a close here. Yours is just getting started.
Yeah, mine's just getting started. My dogs are going to need a walk. And just for anyone listening, I'm just going to say again, Nick's been a mentor for me for many, many years, and I love the way he phrases things. I love how lateral thinking you are about exercise, and I really love that you're quite challenging and you're a no BS kind of trainer out there. So really,
I'll try that. It's an honor that you think of me that way, and it's an honor to be a part of your journey, and really proud of seeing what you're doing here, and that you called upon me to do this, and always excited to see all your success. And we're all constantly evaluating ourselves, and I still think your best work is ahead of you.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks very much for your time.